What's good, grinders? Welcome to MLS, Motivation, Logic, and Shenanigans, where we have a lot of motivational videos. We give logical perspectives, and because I am who I am, there's going to be a lot of shenanigans. That being said, today we will be discussing the internal concept of the U.S. education system. We'll be doing that with the help of the Vice YouTube channel. Please show some love and support and go check out the entire video. The link will be in the description. That being said, let's kick this pig. Vice has a panel of different individuals and they are discussing the U.S. school system. The first question is, what is the purpose of education? I believe Sean and Callie had my personal answer to the question. The purpose is to teach critical thinking and prepare kids for the real life and literacy.
Critical thinking, learn how to live out your full potential so you can be independent, and everything else really flows from there.
The purpose of education is to prepare children for the real life and also make sure that they are literate.
Who should decide on what's being taught? This is a great question because the people that are chosen to make the curriculum chooses the narrative of education. So education can become subjective because people tend to teach beliefs rather than facts. To eliminate this, the right people needs to be chosen. Desmond had a great point.
Completely respect your idea of it is not our job as educators to put forth a belief in front of children, right? That includes not perpetuating parents' beliefs in the classroom as well. In my opinion, that would be keeping a non-biased viewpoint, simply presenting issues, and then allowing kids to decide for themselves.
I would agree that I think it needs to be a collaborative effort.
I'm going to be calling each individual by the names that was given by the show. Don't be just thinking that I'm just making up random names, okay? If you look at the video, these names are popping up as per the show.
I mean, we do have a lot of shenanigans.
Zoya talks about it should be a community effort and actually involve the students.
I would agree that I think it needs to be a collaborative effort. The way that we decide curriculum in Texas is that work groups comprised of community members, educators, parents, even in some cases students and public service officials come together to draft curriculum plans, and then it's ultimately decided on by our State Board of Education, which has a lot of kind of assistance from parents as well. So I think that kind of format can be really effective because it also empowers students to become involved in the fate of their education. And as a student myself, I think that that's incredibly important because our perspectives need to be heard as well.
I agree with this statement because if you are selling, aka teaching a product, it's always good to have the feedback of the consumer. What age do you think it is appropriate to ask a child what would they like to learn? Right after Zoya makes her suggestions, CJ comes into play, and my first impression of CJ, we're gonna just call him passionate for now.
You know when you first meet somebody, you have like that cringe face and you're like, he's gonna be somebody. He's gonna be a character. Yep, he's gonna be somebody.
Speaking of somebody, another character that you're gonna know is Desmond. And these two go at it for the majority of the 43-minute video. It's absolutely hilarious. They are battling each other so much that they get completely off topic. Remember, from the effective communication video, when emotions start flying, it's always hard to stay on topic. They are most definitely off topic at this point. They went from who should decide on what's being taught to what should actually be taught in the classroom. However, CJ came through with a great talking point.
I think that what we're saying is that there's certain conversations that are not to be had with a teacher. And I think that the argument that a lot of people on the right and conservatives are making is that we just don't feel as if actors of the state should be having conversations that are taxpayer funding conversations with children about conversations that have not come up in their own households.
This talking point is why it is important to have the right people in line to decide what needs to be taught. Facts over feelings. The next topic is which is a better school option. Dr. Martin sets the conversation off right.
It's so challenging to pick one right answer for that, because essentially what you're asking is, who do you trust the most with your children? Who do you trust to give them the cultural values that I have and then fill in the gaps where I don't necessarily know the answer, but I trust that they're experts and are going to give my children the attention that they need in order to develop so that they can be a better version of them.
Trust plays a huge role in child development, but money plays a bigger role. For example, you might want your child to be in private school, but your money isn't set up that way. Speaking of money don't just pay for private education, it also pays for safety.
We are in a place where our public schools are not safe, especially the last 20 years. And I just don't see why sending our kids to these environments where it's unsafe. We also used to be, because I used to be on the left, we used to be against the institutionalization of our children. These kids are being institutionalized, having these places where there's 2,000, 3,000 kids. I'm okay with public school, but the problem with it is that it's become an environment where it's almost like the school to prison pipeline. We used to talk about that in the 90s. We're not talking about that anymore. And I think that's something that parents need to wake up about and America needs to wake up about, the institutionalization of our children.
I talk about the school to prison pipeline all day, every day. And I hear what you're saying, that it's terrible that there are parents who are sending their kids to schools that are not safe. However, what about the parents that don't have a choice?
The topic of school choice comes up.
I'm a big advocate for school choice.
Well, why don't we just show of hands? Who believes in school choice?
Can you just specify, like, what do you mean by that?
So that's where parents can apply the money that they pay to taxes, they get vouchers, and they can put that into any school that they want.
And a few comments are said, and good old CJ did not let me down.
I swear, I feel like every time Desmond says something, CJ is just waiting to counter. In CJ's defense though, Desmond waves, they going all over the place. You know, if he claims to be an educator, he might want to learn a little bit the thing called symmetry.
You talk about on the side? Yeah, it's kind of obvious. Yeah, it's all over the place. Anyways, I'm starting to like Dr. Martin. He doesn't say much, but when he does, he says some legit stuff.
This started around school choice. Even if you want to decide on a different learning environment for your kid, the people that do not have the option to send their child to a different place, the bar should not be so low. And that's my concern with school choice, is that sometimes people think that if everyone flees to the suburbs, who is teaching in these schools where everyone has decided they don't want their tax dollars going to? And that's one of the big concerns. With funding of education being the way that it's set up, it essentially makes it so that the people that are stuck with these as their options don't end up with as good a school, and everyone deserves to have their kid go to a good school.
He's cool, but he got that Medusa thing going on.
Anyways, Dr. Martin is absolutely correct. But we live in America, and America is built on money. That being said, the group spends a few minutes discussing homeschooling. This is a great approach to education, but my pushback would be not everyone can afford it. Also, the parents will have to challenge the kids socially, because if the kids are spending all their time at home, where are they getting their social skills from? Speaking of social skills, once again, the conversation goes off topic. It went from, I don't want your bad kids around my kids, to the LGBT community.
Did you see how Desmond was looking at Philip when he was talking?
So I don't think it's okay for me to teach to my children that this is something normal we ought to accept when it doesn't progress society. We would not be able to procreate if everybody were to choose that lifestyle. So I think it's okay for me as a parent to say, hey, this exists, that exists, but this is our view on it, and this is how we want to present it to them.
No comment. Anyways, even though the pot is already boiling, Minda the host opens the floor with this question.
Let's talk about what do you think should be taught about gender identity in school? What do you think is being taught?
Since the group is known for going off topic, they went from that to sexual education. What are your thoughts on both topics? When is it appropriate to actually talk about sexual education?
They're talking about sex ed, and CJ says willy-nilly. Really, dude?
I think that we have such a hypersexualized society. Obviously, kids are having sex younger, they're hooking up younger. It's just reality. I would rather those individuals, and also from a pro-life perspective, know how to have safe sex and preventative sex that prevents pregnancies than them to just go around willy-nilly just doing whatever they want.
I freaking love this dude.
Bro, chill out, chill out. As for this particular issue, I believe that the responsibility has to be mostly on the parents. I believe when your kids get a certain age, you should educate them on real life things. And sex is one of those things.
Babies having babies. You shouldn't be a grandparent at 35. That just shouldn't happen.
The next topic is critical race theory. And what is CRT, Zoya?
Critical race theory in reality is this complex legal institution that relates race to all of the institutions of America since its founding and since its birth. And it's something that I've never learned about in my classroom. I don't have any friends that have learned about it in their classrooms. It's something that's often taught on the graduate level or the undergraduate level. So I think that it's kind of not a great term to use in reference to conversations surrounding K-12 education, because it's not actually something that's even on the docket for consideration.
Thank you for that. I thought the group had a lot of emotions on the social aspect of the LGBTQ community, but it had nothing to do. The emotions was way over top when it came to race. Sean had a good talking point, by the way.
To really make this micro, the way I see it is there is no reason that kids of a certain age, right, because it's different teaching to a 6-year-old than teaching to a 17-year-old or in college, shouldn't learn about the history of slavery, the history of redlining, the history of Italians being lynched in this country, et cetera, looking at the facts and looking at some of the horrible things that have happened so we can learn from it.
Even though he does sound like he's been sipping on some helium.
Are you done? We're trying to learn something here, bro. What are you doing? We're trying to learn something. You just keep on cracking jokes. Goodness gracious. I mean, he did sound like he was sipping on helium, but okay. Talking about race and difficult hardships has to be taught in a correct manner. You don't want to forcefully drive certain points on kids because they will start hating each other. There should be an easier way to do that, a more appropriate way to do that, if you will.
Oh, so you mean in a more upbeat way, in a more cheerful way? I think we have the right person for that.
There is definitely a way to teach CRT without it putting anybody down. But it's like, hey, just so y'all know, if you're interested, there's different types of racism. There's the idea of racism as you treat someone differently because they're a certain color. And yeah, you could be racist to a white person if you don't like them for being white. Now, there's also systemic racism because we took a whole bunch of slaves from another country and brought them over here. But with that said, right, there's different types of racism here. And you can expose yourself to different ones at different times, but you don't have to make anyone feel bad. You just say the statistics the way they are. You're not saying one person's good, one person's bad. You just go over the definitions.
Okay, his backwards ways to this point is getting on my nerves. I mean, hey, can you just brush your hair to the front? Hey, brush your hair to the front.
The group starts talking about white privilege and white names, and it gets pretty intense. Mostly because CJ brought it up. Why wouldn't he, right? We do live in a world with racial biases, and it's okay to give your child a unique name. But just remember, eventually your kids are gonna have to go into the workforce, and eventually they're gonna have to fill out a resume. their government name. Okay? That being said, so just because you feel like it's a unique name, it doesn't mean that it's a unique name to somebody else.
Oh, you're talking about black names.
Don't you do it. Don't do it. There's no such thing as black names. Don't do it.
Yeah, you can definitely tell somebody's black by their names. I mean, like, let's talk about it. Names with an apostrophe in it. Names that has 7 or more syllables. Names after rich people items. And of course, names that sound exotic, but really it's because of some bad health problems or some horrible sex positions.
Enough, we get it. All right, we got it.
Aside. Yeah. Apostrophe sign. It's a real person.
Really? The question on the board is, what type of U.S. history should be taught in school? The group didn't spend too much time in this area, since CJ got all his white privilege comments out in the other section. So this section was just a little bit dry. In my opinion though, the history that I was taught in school was completely subjective. And what do I mean by that? They taught about slavery, but they didn't mention the resilience of slaves. They taught about the destruction of Greenwood, which is freaking epic, but they didn't talk about the development of Greenwood. I have to say this very discreetly. I'm gonna try to skirt the lines a little bit when I say this, right? History should be taught based on facts. All the facts. The good, the bad, and the ugly of America. Kids should objectively learn how America was developed and how it was actually built. The group is now wrapping up the conversation, and the question is presented: where do we go from here? KM had an amazing answer to this question.
We as adults have a lot of work to do, and it's both at kitchen tables and school boards and forums like this. Obviously, literacy is a part of that, and I think there are other parts of that too, but the only way that we can move forward is if, instead of just talking about what do we talk to kids about, I think we have to first get better about how do we talk to each other.
I completely agree with KM. I believe a lot of things can be fixed, but people don't want to have those tough conversations. I believe America operates on ignorance and greed. And the only way to fix these things is for people to come together in good faith and have these conversations. We know we are able to adapt. We also know that we're able to overcome. But are we able to come together? United we stand, and divided we fall.
Damn! Did you write that? My man got bars!
I truly believe that we can save public ed. If we stop arguing with each other and start pouring more resources and like really buckling down to save this thing that really in turn saves us.
At the end of the day, we are all responsible for educating the children. What do you think should be actually taught in school? Do you think there's anything that should be taken out of school? What do you actually teach your kids at home? What are your thoughts on CJ? I thought he was gonna be completely annoying, but I'll just say for this video purpose, we'll just stay with the word passionate. CJ is definitely passionate. If you have a topic that you want a business or logical perspective on, please let me know in the comments. Also, I want to know what are your perspectives and your thoughts on the matter. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If you disagree, what can we do to be better? As always, I hope you grind, and I most definitely hope you prosper. Cheers!